Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I am Christine Jones, and I am your Director in University Honors for this year. It is my privilege and pleasure to be here with all of you for our Fall 2025 Alumni Panel. Before we begin, let me introduce the folks that are here with us. They've joined us this evening on the admin side. First, we've got Sarah Shibu, a UH student board member who just assisted us tonight with the recording and will assist throughout with tech and questions. And welcome, thank you, Sarah. And my colleague, Dr. Ingrid Sadelmeyer, a name you know as the coordinator of Vantage Point. And as this is an event connected to that class, and some of our panelists have never taken that class, I want to ask Dr. Sadelmeyer to welcome you, our students, and tell us a little bit about what's coming up next for Vantage Point.
Yeah, so just a brief word to say that as we're heading toward the end of the semester, and I know all of you have been maybe working on presentations or pulling things together, just to be on the lookout for some messages that will be coming from me. So I'm going to be inviting everybody to apply to the University Honors Student Fellowship Program. It is a relatively new program that we've really enjoyed seeing take off. And what it does is it gives you the opportunity to keep working for 2 semesters on your project in some way, in a very independent kind of way, and to share about your work with others. You get some modest funding for that, so you end up getting, like in the total, $500 over the course of the 2 semesters, and we've seen some really great things coming out of that. And so I just wanted to encourage you to apply, and also take me at my word when you see the messages saying that if you have questions, let me know. So I'll look forward to hopefully hearing from some of you as this semester ends and as we head toward that deadline. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And of course, our guests of honor joining us from their rich and varied lives and taking precious time out of their evenings to be with us, Olivia Zhao, Snigdha Rao, and Jhanavi Rughoonundun. Welcome to our alumni panelists. We are so glad you're here. Thank you again for being with us. This evening is a privileged time for current students to meet those of you who've gone before, learn a little bit about your journeys, get to ask some questions, and maybe even glean some insight. To launch this conversation, I'd love it for all of you to introduce yourselves briefly. Could you tell us what you do, the title that you hold, where you work, and if you have one and can remember it, share your fondest memory of UH with us.
I'm happy to go first. Hi, everyone. I don't think I can see participants. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's just us. Okay. Well, hi, everyone. Good to meet you virtually. My name is Snigdha Rao. I'm based in San Francisco, California. I'm a manager at Deloitte Consulting. So I primarily do work in management consulting in strategy and operations work. And one of my fondest memories of UH is just honestly, I graduated almost 11 years ago now. I'm dating myself a little bit, but if the one thing that I remember is my dorm. We all lived in Hagerstown Hall. I don't know if that still exists. We didn't have air conditioning. I don't know if you have air conditioning now. But we just bonded so closely, and some of my best friends to this day are my floor mates from UH. So thanks for having me.
I can go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia, and I graduated from University of Maryland back in 2016, so almost 10 years now. I currently work at the FDA. My official job title is biologist, but I would say more of a data analyst. I work in nutrition, I look at food labels, and I basically review a lot of food and nutrition data as my sort of my day-to-day work. And I would say my fondest memory as a university honors student would be the variety of seminars I was able to take. Like I took seminars on biofuels, there's one called Why Managers Make Bad Decisions. And I think that it's just interesting to kind of delve into these topics that aren't necessarily related to my major. And I had a good time sort of learning and branching out.
Hi everyone, my name is Jhanavi. I graduated from UMD with my undergrad December 2023. And then I went directly into my master's and I'm finishing this year, December. I mean, I currently work on campus right now, part-time, at the chapel on campus. And my fondest memory of UH, similar to Snigdha, is the living and learning experience. They built new dorms, so I got to live in Pyeongchang the first year, and I met, like, similar to Snigdha as well. I met my bestest friends through that. So I really enjoyed that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It feels like the beginning of building lives. Building your life is building your memories. So I really appreciate you sharing those thoughts with us. So we're going to get started. Answer some questions. Students are going to be able to ask you some questions. The general theme I hoped would orient us today is risk and resilience, how to follow your passion and also make solid choices. It's a hard time. You all have gone through between 2 and 10 years out of school. You've risked, you've been resilient, you've made choices. So that's the idea, to kind of give students a sense tonight of how that works, because we can't stop doing it. We need to take risks. So how do we do that well? How do we make solid choices, but also follow our passions, a running theme in UH. And I wanted to say for a second that for me, you all have really fascinating paths. So Olivia, we've got a BS in marketing and a BA in econ, transitioning then as a fellow into
Oh,
the
sorry
FDA.
to interrupt, but BS in biology and then BA in
Oh,
economics.
oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you
All
so
good.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. So biology, economics, and ended in the FDA. So this is that's a really exciting journey that we'll talk about. Snigdha, from marketing and biological sciences to Deloitte, and an internship in the National Park Service, and finally the Yale School of Management. Jhanavi, from the ranks of peer academic leader, a position in UH that students in this room can also hold. She Textron Systems as a production planner, back to UMD as an event planner, and now completing also a master's in information systems at Smith with a passion for data analysis. So you've all had these wonderful, varied journeys. You've, in a sense, been many people, even during your time at UMD, I'm sure, but certainly since you left. So can you tell us, to begin, what has motivated your journeys so far, professionally speaking? What passion has driven you to kind of make these choices? And Olivia, we've got your face still visible to us. Would you start?
So in terms of what motivated me, I think when I first started off at UMD, I was undecided and I kind of wanted to just sort of do a bunch of different things to kind of figure out what I liked. I started off as undecided, declared microbiology as my first major, and then added economics because I also wanted to see if I enjoyed social sciences. And I think that I wouldn't say exactly that I found, something I knew exactly what I wanted to do in undergrad. And I think that's okay because it's a lot to know exactly, your path in life when you graduate as a young student. But I think that what helps in discovering what I enjoy is just the different experiences. Like I never thought I would be in working in public health, but I am now, and I love being able to make a impact on sort of bettering the day-to-day lives of the average American in the work I do in nutrition. And so I would say that just the different classes I took, the different events I attended, and the organizations I was part of, where I did, TA'd and I did fellowships in which I did research, where I sort of figured out this is what I don't like and this is what I like. And that helps me slowly build up towards, what do I see myself pursuing as a career? And I realized in undergrad, I really enjoyed sort of data analysis, where I work with data to try to discern patterns from it. And so in my current career, that's the job I do every single day. And through it, I've learned, programming skills. I've learned how to work with massive amounts of information, and importantly, how to communicate the little details of that to wider audiences who may not be as familiar. And so I think just to follow your passion, it doesn't have to be this grandiose sort of vision, but just small steps where you branch out, find what you like, find what you don't like, which is also very important, and build it up from there.
Terrific. Those are many, many life lessons in that small statement. Jhanavi, do you want to jump in? Because data analysis came up, so I feel like this is a good moment for you to jump in.
Sure, yeah. So for motivation, I think one thing during my undergrad and even now, one thing that has really motivated me is attending the different events just like this where alumni come and speak. For example, I know I used to go to Terps Under 30, where they bring in like entrepreneurs who have like invented different things and they tell their background, their story. And for me, I feel like hearing from someone who was also a UMD student who has been through what I am currently going through over here, and hearing from them talk about their journey, the steps that they took to get to where they are right now, to be as successful as they are right now, and to hear about, I guess, like the mishaps and everything, and the troubles that they had to go through to get to where they are. I feel like that really motivates me because I can then see like, oh yes, I'm in a similar place. I was also in the business school like this person. Like and it motivates me to feel like, oh, I can also end up as successful as they are. So that's what really keeps me going as I face difficult times, as I'm in school, as I'm trying to find motivation to finish my degree and find jobs. So yeah.
Great. And thank you for playing that role tonight. Snigdha, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I think I definitely resonate with a lot of what Olivia mentioned. I think what's really important to remember when I was in your shoes, like 10, 11 years ago, is that the person you are today is not going to be the person you are tomorrow or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So I think being open to constantly evolving and constantly kind of checking in with yourself, I think is one of the most important things you can do. That self-awareness is what will guide you to jobs and careers that align with your values versus being in a job that, maybe someone told you you should do because it looks good on a resume, and then fast forward 10, 15 years and you're, deeply unhappy, deeply misaligned with your values or your goals. So I think it's really important to constantly check in with yourself. In terms of what motivates me, that has changed basically every year. When I was in my 20s, I think what motivated me was to be that, traditionally successful, a well-paying job, a brand that people know, like that kind of check mark. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But now I think my motivations are more around how can I be a good citizen of the world? How can I create like an impact that I'm proud of? And then how can I be like a better partner and friend and daughter and sibling, and like all of those things matter a lot more to me now. And I'm sure that'll change again in a couple years, but I think being motivated by the relationships I'm building and like how I want to be seen in the world, not just what other people want me to be seen as.
Great. So you're all describing also that this journey is relational, and it's also about the people you meet and the ways that you interact and the changes that they bring to you, some of them harder and some of them really, really wonderful. On that note, and I think that if you could stay with us and maybe segue to this idea, you phrase it as sort of becoming different people being motivated differently and sort of finding other ways to drive your interests and finding other things to do, other ways to engage in the world that really speak more to the interests as you have them, as they grow and as they change. That sounds really important because we tend to think of careers as sort of a career, right? A thing you choose and you'll grow into it and you'll change, but you'll stay in it. And so often that's just not logical or not wholesome or not the best you could do for yourself when you're checking in, as you put it. Can you point to a moment, and maybe there are multiple ones, when you said, yes, that's it, that's what I want to become? Was there anything like that on your journey?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question because I and maybe this is a disappointment to those listening, is I don't think I have an answer to that. I think like I had there's never a moment in my life that I'm like, yes, I made it. I figured out who I am and now I'm never going to change and this is it. And it's like that's not at all something I've experienced. And I think that's okay. I think what's to answer your question more directly is there have been moments where I've said, you know, this is a goal that I have, and I've now achieved that goal. And that feels really good, right? Like getting my first job out of undergrad was a goal. I wanted to go into consulting, and I did that. And I was like very happy about that. I wanted to get into grad school, and I did that, and I was very happy about that. So I think there have been like those milestones. Dr. Jones lived like, oh, I've made it. Like I did this thing that I set out for myself and it feels good because I worked really hard and I accomplished it. But I think the important thing is that you're continuing to set those goals for yourself, and being complacent is something that I don't enjoy, because I think when I find myself being complacent and saying, "Whew, I made it, I'm done," I think that's where there's a danger of kind of like living your life as, you know, you're just kind of going through the motions, and there's so much to learn and experience that I think that can sometimes hinder that sense of curiosity.
Great. Um, yeah, the sense of curiosity, and that might even lead us to the idea of risk. So, Olivia and Jhanavi, do either one of you want to jump into this idea of a moment when you said, "Yeah, that's what I really want," and or um, a moment when you said, "Yeah, I've really got to take that risk."
Can, I guess, speak to a moment where I decided to take a risk.
Mhm.
When I first graduated from UMD, I had sort of two paths available to me. One was I could go work for this company full time that was based in Utah, and the other was this sort of fellowship slash internship position with the FDA. It wasn't a sort of a full time job, but and I decided to go with that instead of the position in Utah because I like this area and I wanted to stay, and I wanted to explore sort of the avenue in which research was done at the FDA at that time, because I wanted to, I guess, explore more of the public health side. And so I took that risk of, I guess, not taking a full-time job. And it was really stressful because, you know, everyone's starting their career and they have great job offers. And I'm sort of just still kind of an intern. But I feel like in a way it's paid off because I was able to secure the full-time job at the FDA and, you know, get promoted. And now I do, and I've learned so much regarding, you know, public policy and how we communicate to stakeholders, to industry, and just how I guess robust the work that we do is, because it's scrutinized by so many different groups. And I think that with risk, you know, if I had taken that job in Utah, maybe I probably would still feel the same way, but it's sort of your paths diverge and there's no right or wrong. It's just what you feel in the moment, you know, and you just sort of have to make that jump, that risk, and be like, okay, well, I think it's going to work out because this is what I choose for myself. And I just have to look forward and not, you know, think what if, but instead, you know, what does the future hold? I think it's important to not spend too much time hung up on the choices you make, but more so on, okay, I made my choice. what now?
Wow. So part of the trick of the risk is sort of taking the risk, owning the choice, and really letting it show you where it's going to go. It's a hard thing to do. It requires some patience, all sorts of things. So yeah, wonderful. Um, that was a risk that paid off. Jhanavi, do you want to jump in with a risk that paid off?
Mhm. So my risk, it's a bit earlier in my journey. So during high school, there was a new program called the Early College Program in my county, that I had never heard of. So I mean, I got a letter in the mail like telling me about it. I went to an introduction session for it. So basically, the program would allow me to complete my associate's degree during the last 2 years of high school, fully attending like the local community college, taking all college level classes, and not attending high school for 11th and 12th grade. Um, and then those college classes would be counting towards like the high school degree. So it was a very big decision for like a 10th grader to make, because I feel like that really, me saying yes to that program, it really set my academic journey from there. So when I was trying to decide whether to do it or not, I felt like I was trying to debate whether I should continue my time in high school, like stay with my friends. But in the end, I didn't feel very challenged in high school. Um, I felt like I needed something more than what I was being given. So I decided to go down that path. I went down that path, and because of that, I was able to graduate from undergrad early. I was able to start my master's program pretty early as well. So I feel like choosing the early college program that early on, it's set like a stepping stone for my educational pathway. And I was ready for it at that time, so I am happy that it went that way. And looking back at it, I think now I realize how much of a risk it was. I think back then I didn't really give it much thought, because
Oh,
if I would, I don't know what would have happened to me if I didn't go down that route. So
wow. So I'm also hearing that, risk, of course, can often involve just a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit of loss of comfort. Olivia, you seem to say the same thing. Other people getting well-paid jobs, and you take the internship, and you're going to eat differently from the way they will for a while, but that these things can really pay off if you can pace yourself. And Snigdha, I'm also reminded of your sense of sort of listening, that when we're attuned, when we're paying attention to what we really want, to what we really feel passionate about, that all gets a little bit easier, even the hardships. But I'd love for you to all talk about that just for a second. Anyone can jump in here. So when you take risks, and in the course of a life and in the course of the opportunities that come to you, I think, Olivia, you said, you're going to be at these forks, you're going to be at these pathways, and you're going to pick one and you're not going to do the other one. And these are just psychologically, emotionally hard places to be. Can you all talk a little bit about your go-to for resilience? Sort of what is the thing you go to, or that you've learned you need, that sort of floats you through those experiences, those moments?
I can start for this. I feel like one thing that really helps me stay resilient, especially when things don't go the way I planned them to or the way I expected it to, is really leaning on my community, I would say, and especially my circle of friends. Um, I would say also like during my point in life right now, I'm graduating, I'm trying to look for jobs. So it's a very stressful, and it is a very risky time as well. So I have no choice but to be resilient right now. So when I face those like rejections or like bad news, I always reach out to my friends, I guess for both emotional, like moral support. And I actually have like an example, like this past week, I wasn't feeling very resilient. And so I called my friends and they gave me a new perspective. Like they gave me a different perspective on how to look at the situation. And they also gave me a lot of different ideas that I myself would never have thought of. And so I mean, I realized then, like, to stay resilient, it's nice to get different perspectives. I think for me also, because I feel like I have like a one track mind, like I'm only looking at things from one perspective. So hearing them introduce other ideas, other methods, it made me feel more motivated to continue going through this process.
Were any of them from UH?
Yes. One of them, I'm sure you know her too. She was a former pal.
All right. Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything Genevieve said. I think there's like the power of community is super important in times of difficulty, leaning on friends, leaning on family, mentors. I've definitely done that. I think, yeah, I just want to echo everything you said. I think it's very easy to be in this like echo chamber of your own thoughts, and it's like a negative feedback loop. You're like, I got rejected, I suck, I can't do anything, I'll never get a job, and then you just keep going down this like rabbit hole that's not helpful to you. So I think bringing yourself out of that through like meeting up with friends, talking to them. I also like underrated coping mechanism is I love to watch like funny YouTube videos or like watch a funny TV show just to get out of my funk if I'm ever feeling down. And I think like, yeah, doing stuff like that that just brings you joy, eating ice cream, I don't know, stuff like that is always helpful.
Especially at the Maryland Dairy, the best ice
I miss that place.
cream.
And again, I also agree about the community. I think we can be our own worst enemies sometimes and our harshest critics. And talking to friends helps because you usually they're much kinder to you and what you say than how you speak to yourself in your inner head. And I think one thing that I've learned that's helped is that, back in college, I used to be really reserved and I would feel uncomfortable talking to people about some of my struggles. But now, as I get older and I've met a wonderful group of friends after college, I find it really helpful to be like, hey, this is going on and these are my thoughts and I'm struggling with this, and just sort of have that community there to walk you through it, to just even just having them listen, I think makes a huge difference. Like earlier this year when there were all these reductions in force in the government, I was incredibly stressed out. It was not a good time for me, and I had a friend who also worked in the government, and so we would talk a lot about how it was impacting us and just what we'd do to cope and get through it. And I think that really helped through that time. So I would say don't be afraid to talk to people, whether it's friends or family, just because usually you are your own harshest critic. So it's good to have that outside voice telling you, hey, it's not the end of the world and you should be nicer to yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for sharing that part of your story, the recent story with the FDA. It must have been incredibly hard. So thank you. And thank you all for that amazing life advice. I want to also just get you talking to us a little bit about a kind of a familiar question that students tend to have around this time, and one that also always feels like it constitutes a bit of a risk, especially if the world appears to want to propel you directly into the workforce. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you decided to go to grad school? And if you took a gap year, what that felt like, if you recommend gap year. Just kind of talk us through your process as you were leaving UMD, um, when you knew you could go on for higher education beyond your degree, or you could go out to work. And I think you've all done both at this point. So how did you decide on sort of the order of things? And what was it like making the decision for you, whether or not to go to grad school?
I can go first. So I always knew that I wanted to go to grad school. That was something that, I had done some self-reflection on. And I knew that I wanted to go to grad school at some point. I just didn't know if it was for my MBA, my MPP, or like an MPH. So I was kind of deciding between like public health, public policy, or business. I don't think there's a right answer or a wrong answer to any of this. I actually really wish I had taken a gap year. I think I felt pressured by society to just kind of like go into the workforce. And I I try not to have regrets in my life, but I think like if I could do it over, I would probably take a gap year. I think that's a moment in your life that you never get back. And there's just, that's very special. So I did end up working for about 4 or 5 years and then getting my MBA. And I think for me, it was just a matter of usually for MBAs, they do like to see work experience before because that's the point of getting a master's in business is you have some work experience to talk about in your classes. A lot of classes are discussion based. When you're applying for internships, they're going to look at your past work experience. So it was unique to that master's program that I did need work experience and I also wanted to work. I wanted to kind of get out there and like see what was going on. So that was my thought process, but I don't think there's ever a wrong answer in any of this.
Thank you.
I can go next. So because I was talking about before, the early college program, I finished my undergrad pretty early. And coming into UMD, I never gave thought to like a grad program. I think in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, maybe I'll like go for an MBA later on. Um, but as I was here, as I was taking my classes, um, I was actually a double major in information systems and supply chain management. And then I started hearing about a +1 program. And it reminded me of the early college program because basically in the +1 program, you could take a third of the grad classes during undergrad, and then you'd only have 1 year left, and then you'd be done with your master's. So I heard about it and I was like, okay, I think this is something that I would like to pursue. And at first, I was trying to figure out whether it was necessary for someone in my field. And so I was going back and forth. I talked to some professors, and I also had to make the choice in terms of what I wanted to get my master's in. So in the end, I decided to go towards information systems, because I felt like I would learn the most from that with all the technical skills. Um, so I joined the +1 program, and then after that, yeah, I decided to go into it right away because I felt like I wasn't ready to graduate, like I wasn't ready to go out into the workforce. And I mean, when I first came to UMD, I felt like I would have been ready. Like I never would have thought I would directly go into masters because I'm someone who learns very like hands-on. So I thought I would get my undergrad, then I would go work and get that hands-on experience. But by the time that came around, I didn't feel like I was prepared to go do that. Um, so yeah, so I stayed and I'm finishing up the grad program this year. And I don't know if I'm ready to go, but now I have to go.
But ready or not, can you
Yeah.
say a little bit more about what is daunting about getting out there after you've been in education for a while?
Mhm. So all of my friends, they just graduated from undergrad, so we talk about this all the time, like the adjustment from being in school, living within like 5 to 10 minutes of your friends, going to hang out together every day, like having meals together every day, and then and then you change to like some people that I know are in different states with like time differences. People are working full time, like people are studying for like MCATs, like I have friends doing that. And so now your schedule, it doesn't align up and you're so far away from everyone, it becomes so much harder to like maintain the friendships and I guess to make that adjustment as well. And I think one thing I have realized with this change in life is that you have to really, just like you put time and effort into your education, into your homework, into your family, you have to do the same thing with your friends. Otherwise, I mean, they won't be there anymore. They won't be your friends really if you don't actively put time away to communicate with them, to check in on them. I have one example with my two best friends, the one that I had talked to this week. One of them moved to Wisconsin. The other one is working full time here. So we were very close. Like we would meet like once a week, like when we were all at UMD together. We decided to schedule a weekly call. And so far we've been able to keep up with it. Like we keep in contact, like we text basically every day still, despite everyone's busy schedules. We still text every day. We schedule our weekly calls, and it is harder because people's schedules don't align up. But if like we make the effort and the time to do it, and we are able to do it. And I think post grad, you do realize like who your real friends are and that you don't need to be friends with everybody. I think you also kind of see that while you're in school, but it becomes more apparent post grad because it's harder to maintain those relationships. So yeah.
And thank you for segueing into how to keep friends when adulting, because it's a really, really
Yeah.
good. That question was on here too. That's a big one for students, I think. How
Yeah.
to make and keep friends as adults. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Olivia, did you have anything else you wanted to share about your path and the journey and gapping or not?
Oh, yes. So I didn't go to grad school. When I graduated, I, because I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, I didn't want to sort of just make a sort of casual decision about grad school. And also at the time, I wanted to prioritize sort of financial stability. So I knew I wanted to work and earn money as soon as possible. And I think just with the way things progressed, being sort of an ORISE fellow for the FDA and then getting converted to full time, I haven't felt that need to go to grad school. And sometimes I wonder to myself, should I have gone earlier? Like what would my trajectory have been like if I decided like immediately like I'm gonna go to grad school? But I don't know. And I think that's okay because the chance is still there. I think if I can see a clear avenue on how it would help me if I wanted to pivot careers, for example, or if I wanted to do something more specialized that required higher education, I would go to grad school for that. So it was just, I think for me, I just the way things have progressed for me, I didn't feel the need to, and I'm okay with that. And if that sort of opportunity or that, I guess, career trajectory presents itself to me in the future, then it would be an option to consider. So it's sort of an unknown, but it's there on the horizon, and I think that's just how it is.
Fantastic. Different models, different examples in different ways. Really, really wonderful, everybody. We are almost out of time. I want to make sure some of our students have a chance to jump in here because I've had so much fun talking to you. Sarah, do we have any questions that you have gathered for us? Or can I ask potentially anyone in the audience to put a question into the chat? I think someone just raised a hand. Can you put the question in the chat for us? Will that work? Sarah, are you able to see these questions? Hands are raising. Hands are raising everywhere. Are you with us, Sarah?
Hi. I'm not able to see it on my end.
You don't see it. Okay.
Yeah. Let
Do we
me.
have a way to, let me see, can we help our student participants ask their questions? Do you have a way to do that?
I think we need to just go to one of the hands, and one of the hosts you can allow them to talk. You just have to hover over the hand.
Okay, I'm gonna start doing that. Is this Anthony? Anthony, you're on.
Needs to unmute.
I am allowing.
Hi, the chat is disabled right now.
Great. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. But can anybody, is anybody able to talk, or can I not unmute anybody? I cannot unmute you folks. Is that what's happening?
Well, Mara was able to talk, so
I think
Bravo.
some people are unable to unmute or like even talk because I wasn't able until now.
Interesting. Okay. So sorry, folks. I'm trying, but apparently you are not actually able to talk, though you are permitted.
I think what we could maybe do is, as people raise their hands, by each of them, we can just allow them to speak and then go down the list that way.
Yeah. Sarah, do you want to do that? Can you get in there and do that?
Yes. Right now, I don't see any hands raised. So if anyone wants to has a question to ask, I can go ahead and do that.
Can you raise your hands again, folks, if you have a question? Mara and Anthony have talking permitted, as far as I can tell.
I still don't see any hands on my end. Just want to double check.
Okay. In the meantime, I want to ask one last question while we're gathering some of the questions from students. Are any of you willing to share one line from what I'll call your CV of failures? And I'm going to list trying to get students to speak in this webinar as one of my lines on my list of CV failures. So your CV of failure, this is the part of your life that you never share. It doesn't make it onto your resume. The resume is the kind of glorious part of your life. It's the one that you make public facing. It's the one everybody sees. But we all have a resume of failures. All those moments we didn't get the thing we applied for. And those are hard, but they really humanize us. And because students are used to seeing resumes and CVs, especially in classes where you work on them, and they all look great and they all look successful, can you share anyone, just one of your backstory moments that didn't make it onto your resume?
I think I can go first. When I was graduating, I applied to a lot of jobs because, I was trying to find a position, and I got a lot of rejections. it was a bit disheartening at the time. And I remember specifically, I had a friend who had applied for a job at Geico, and he eventually accepted a job there. And I had also applied for the same position and was rejected after the first round interview, or not even the interview, like the first round of, I guess, when they look at your resume. And I remember at that time, I was really just, I felt very demoralized. I was like, am I not good enough? Is there something more I should have done? And so I guess that's an example of a CV of failure at that time. And I think that, as you progress in your career, or applying to grad school, or applying to jobs, those moments, they're going to happen. And sometimes they can happen kind of often, unfortunately. And it's important to just be grounded, even though at that time when I was being rejected from all of these jobs, I am still grateful that I got to where I am today, even amidst all this chaos in the government currently. I'm grateful for this job in which I can work on public health, and there I can work with these incredibly smart and passionate people who are and I devote their lives to public policy. I have a lot of flexibility in my job, which allows me to pursue interests outside of work. And it's made me a more well-rounded person as a whole. But I back then when I was a student about to graduate, I could never have predicted this because I was so disheartened by my experience. So I think it's important to keep grounded, focus on yourself. Other people have their different career goals and their different progressions, and maybe it's not for you, and that's okay. Like, even if you feel like you're falling behind, we're all on our own timeline. And this is something I have to remind myself even today. Comparison is the thief of joy. As long as you are working on yourself, no matter how small, I think that's good enough, right? To be a better person than you are today, to be a better person like 5 years in the future than you are today. So it's just important to know that, yes, you may feel like you're behind your peers, and yes, rejections will happen, but it sort of shapes you to who you are. And I think it will work out in the end. Maybe not in the way you expected at the time, but just have faith in yourself, and take it slow, and just remember to be kind to yourself as well.
Great, thank you. The lesson in resilience, along with the line from the CV of failures. Thank you. That's wonderful. Does anyone else want to share one of their stories?
Yeah, I mean, Olivia, I like definitely resonate with everything you said. So many internships I just got rejected from in college. I I remember applying to this one internship I really thought was great, and a bunch of people were like talking about it, and I really like admired the upperclassmen who had done the internship and then also got rejected. I applied to grad programs that I got rejected from. Yeah, lots of just rejection in a lot of ways. And not to be like woo woo about it, but another kind of phrase that I remind myself is rejection is redirection. And it's like there's no right or wrong path. And yeah, I think that there's like the other thing I will say is social media is not helpful in times of this, because I would be scouring LinkedIn or like looking at LinkedIn and everyone is like, I'm so humbled and honored to announce blah, blah, blah. And at a certain point, you don't need that input. Like, it's not helpful to you. If it's motivating you, fine. But that's just like one piece of advice I would say is if you are in the midst of applying to jobs and you're kind of feeling low about things, like try to mute like LinkedIn or Instagram. Those are just highlight reels of people's lives, not the holistic picture. So just something to keep in mind too.
Terrific. Thank you for that. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing these stories. It's a kind of divulging, isn't it? Because we are taught to hide these things. But I think also if we can get used to that as students, the fact that we have to apply, and if anyone has a statistic, I'd love to hear it, a kind of percentage you know, how many you have to send to hit it with one. It's a low percentage sort of return on that investment. So you got to make the investment. And it's really good to share these things, I think, because it just makes us realize that everyone is going through it. So I hope also everyone listening, as you encounter rejections, which you will, if you put yourself out there and you risk, you will, but that's the growth and it's the redirecting and it's all the language that you both put to it. So thank you so much. I want to make sure before we end, and for folks who are still here, thank you so much for hanging in, that I go ahead and I share our final slide for our alums. And I want to make sure that I get this right. And there you are. We're going to please give our panelists a warm, quiet round of applause. But Snigdha, Olivia, Jhanavi, thank you so, so much for joining us tonight. Yay, hands are coming. Appreciate. This has been fantastic. You've been wonderful. Everyone, the whole audience, you've been incredibly generous. And thank you for your grace as we struggle through some tech tonight. You've been terrific. Please scan these QR codes. And, you know, I'm going to speak for our panelists when I say they'll take your questions. Am I right? So
Yes.
please reach out. Yeah, please reach out to them with the questions that you have. And yes, Snigdha, Olivia, Jhanavi, thank you. Thank you so much on behalf of UH, on behalf of Vantage Point and myself, because I had such a great time talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Okay, everybody, good luck with everything you're doing. Be safe tonight, and we'll see you again soon.